Alright, I believe this is part 4 or 3, I don't remember. Anyways, I think it's part 4. Without graphing, identify the y-intercept. Okay, for a y-intercept, we just got to recall that when I have my graph hit the y-intercept, and here's an example up here. When my graph hits the y-intercept, I know my x is going to have a value of 0. So we know that the x should equal 0. So x has to equal 0 when I have a y-intercept. So all I have to do really is put in 0 for wherever I see x, and that makes it very simple. I get y equals negative 12. Okay, that was really simple. 52 says find the axis of symmetry of the quadratic function given by this equation. This is a great thing that you should put on a note card, a 3x5 note card you can have for the final. But it's negative b over 2a. That's going to help me find the axis of symmetry. It gives me my x value of the axis of symmetry. Okay, so that's why this is correlated with this. So we're going to actually go over to our equation, which is right over here. And we're going to get, this is a, b, and c. Those are the values there. So we're going to get a negative 6 all over 2 times 3. That's going to give me a negative 6 over 6, which is a negative 1. Okay, so my axis of symmetry, my AOS, is going to have an x value of negative 1, but now I need to find the y value. To find the y value, I'm going to plug it back into my equation, and I'm going to use negative 1. So I get 3 negative 1 squared plus 6 times negative 1 plus 4. Negative 1 squared is going to give me a positive 1, so that'll just leave me with a 3. This would be a negative 6 and a positive 4. Add all that up together, and I'm going to end up with a positive 1. Okay? So, sorry, this is my vertex. I apologize. I went too far. That was my vertex. The axis of symmetry is just x equals negative 1. Okay, I took it a step too far. So I gave you the vertex, but we really only have to do the axis of symmetry, just the b, negative b over 2a. Okay? The next one is what I was doing, finding the vertex. Okay, so you're going to use the negative b over 2a, and then we'll plug it back in. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Negative b is going to be a negative 12 all over 2 times a negative 2. That's going to become a positive 12 over a negative 4, which would give me a negative 3. So my x value is negative 3. And we'll plug that into my equation. Negative 3 squared is 9. 9 times negative 2 is going to give me a negative 18. Negative 3 times a negative 12 is going to give me a positive 36. And then minus 16. And if we do all that, I should get, I believe, 2. So there's my vertex. Okay. 54, solved by factoring. So we're just going to go ahead and set up our normal x factor. We get negative 8 and 2. Two numbers that multiply to give me negative 8 and add to give me a positive 2. Would be negative 2 and positive 4. So I get x minus 2 and x plus 4 equals 0. This is where I use the zero product property. I set each of these equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. That means x is going to equal 2 and negative 4. Notice my answer on the basic x factor is just the opposites of these two. Okay. All right. Solve using square roots. This one's pretty simple. I just square root both sides. And we get x equals plus or minus 10. Always have to do plus or minus when I'm doing square roots. Okay. If you take a look at 56 and 57, you're going to do the same, and 58, you're going to do the same thing, and 59, you're going to do the same thing. Just get x squared alone. Let's do 59 real quick together. First, before we can take the square root, we just have to divide by 2. X squared equals 16. Take the square root, x is going to equal plus or minus 4. 1115. Okay, so x will equal plus or minus 4. All right. 60, find the number that completes the square for each expression. Remember, to find the completed square, we have to do b divided by 2 squared. In this case, I'm going to get 14 divided by 2, which is 7 squared, which is going to be 49. This one here, we're going to get half of 20, which is 10. 10 squared is 100. Half of negative 30 is negative 15. 15 squared is 225. Again, we're using b over 2 squared. Okay? Okay. So we got a couple complete the squares. We'll do one right now. To complete the square, we're going to get x squared plus 6x. We're going to leave a space equals 16. Again, I'm going to use that b over 2 squared. This is going to become 6 divided by 2, which becomes 3 squared, which is going to give me 9. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Then I got to factor x squared plus 6x plus 9. That's going to be 3 times 3 will give me 9, and 3 plus 3 will give me 6. So this becomes x plus 3 squared equals 25. Square root both sides to get rid of that squared term, and I get x plus 3 equals plus or minus 5. Remember, whenever we take the square root, we have to do plus or minus. Subtract the 3, and we get x equals a negative 3 plus 5, or negative 3 minus 5. So I get two answers of 2 and negative 8. Okay. So you'll complete the square 62 and 63 in a similar fashion. 64, quadratic formula. We need to know the quadratic formula, so we'll use that on our note card. X equals the negative boy, couldn't decide, go to the radical party. You didn't want a b squared, miss out on 4 awesome churros. The whole thing is over at 2a. Again, my values are a, b, and c. So we just plug it in. We get negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay. We always like to solve the inside part first, inside the parentheses. Negative and a negative makes a positive 6 plus or minus the square root. Negative 6 squared is 36. 4 times 3 is 12. Times 1 doesn't change it, it's minus 12. All over 2 times 3, which is 6. 36 minus 12 is going to give me 24. 24, is there a perfect square for 24? Nope. So we leave this and say x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 24. We'll do that for the next one. Same pattern and setup. And there's all my work. (66) and 67, you can solve any method, either square root, factoring, or quadratic, so we'll leave that to you. Number 68, determine how many solutions of the quadratic by using the discriminant. Remember, the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. So, again, we have a, b, and c. So we throw that in the equation, we get 4 squared minus 4 times a times c. This is going to give me 16 minus 6 times 4 is 24. 24 times 4 is what? 96? No. Yes. Lucky me. This equals a negative 80 though. That's not my answer. It says what's the number of solutions. If I have a negative, I have no solutions. Can't take the square root of a negative, can you? So we're going to end up with no solutions. That means this parabola does not hit the x-axis. If I were to show this graph, it would not hit the x-axis. All right, this last one we're going to do in its entirety. You might want to really pay attention to this. Wink, wink. In case we are going to see this in a second. Yes, I will. Wink, wink, like you might see it very soon. Like, wink, wink. Okay. Mean. You take all these numbers and add them up. And divide by how many we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 values. Let's add them up. I got my calculator. This is a good reason to have a calculator. If you don't, you're going to have fun adding. Okay, so I get this as my sum. Okay, the mean is the sum divided by the amount I have. So when I divide it, I'm going to get 79.8 as my mean. Questions on how I found the mean? Good. The median is the middle score. That's when I line them all up. Are these in order? Yep. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The middle is right here. What falls between 86 and 88? 87. Okay? If I couldn't tell that, I could add 86 plus 88 and divide it by 2. That would also get me the answer of 87. Any questions? All right, lower quartile is going to be the median of basically this portion. So we count in and we get the lower quartile, LQ. And then the one right after it's the upper quartile, we look at the top one and find its median, basically, or the middle value, and that's our UQ. So we get 65, and we get 96. Okay. Find the max value for 73. Well, our highest value is clearly 100. And what's our minimum value? 36. Okay. One way I can demonstrate some information is using a box and whisker plot. Not the only way to show data, but I can show data using a box and whisker plot. We got 35 or 36 to 100, so it's pretty spread out data. I'm going to count by fives. Okay, median is at 87, so the median is right about here. Lower quartile is 65. Upper quartile is 96. That's how I make my box. Lower quartile, median, upper quartile. Make sure this is a median, not the mean. My max is 100. My minimum is 35. And there it is. Box and whisker plot. Okay. What are some other ways I could display data? Histogram. That would be a really great way to show data of how many numbers we have. We have a dot plot is another good way to show frequencies. Okay. Histograms are a good way to show the median and the spread of the data. Dot plots are better at showing the frequency and the grouping. Same with the histogram. Okay? Coolio. And stop.